So first off, my name is Andy Back. I'm the Planning and Development Services Manager for Washington County. We do these development forums twice a year, generally in April and October. I want to point out Stephen Roberts is here. He's the Assistant Director for the department, and Andrew Singalakis unfortunately couldn't be here today, but would have liked to be here. Let's talk a little bit about the forum's purpose. So the first thing we see it all around you is to share information. We think this is a good way just to get information out to people in a somewhat informal way, especially at the end of the forum when we do some networking. We think that's a good opportunity. We also want to hear from customers on how we're doing and little changes we can make. And probably the last one, which we think is really, really important, is knowing that everything we do is relationship-based, and it's important to establish those relationships. And we know that in the process of actually applying for permits, and when you're actually into the process, things can get contentious. We believe that quality of the product is a function of building those relationships before the fact, so the dialogues we have when we're actually in the permit process are better. I'm going to read something called The Nature of Our Work, Our Role, that I do every time, but it kind of sets the stage for at least my perspective on what we do. And I've read this, or something like this, at all the development forums. So here I go. The nature of our work is to be your partner to get you through the process and meet regulations. It's important to note that we are regulators. We're here because development code and building codes are on the books and it's law. It's a partnership with you, but also with our citizens who expect us to implement these regulations. When you're at the point of getting permits, it's not a productive debate whether or not they should be on the books, nor do we debate neighbors who want more regulations. Our job is to be your partner, to get you through the regulations. I know the term regulator may have a bad connotation for some of you, but to me it means we are your partner to get you through the process, to meet the regulations, not exceed the regulations, nor waive the regulations. It's important to emphasize the partnership, but it's also important to recognize the fundamental truth that we wouldn't be here if these regulations were on the books. So with that, let me talk a little bit about our activity levels and staff updates. I'll start with staff updates. I want to mention 3 people who are in the room who are in different positions than the last time. So Scott Young, he's the new county surveyor. So once you get to the point of actually getting things recorded and plats done and all that good stuff, Scott's an important person to know. In the spirit of hiring Scott Linfesti is the new building official. So he's an important person to know once you're at the permit stage for getting building permits. And a third person I want to introduce is Jennifer Fettner, proving that we hire other people than just Scott. So Jennifer, I'm going to talk a little bit more about her role because it's something new. So we've hired Jennifer to head what we're calling the site development section. And it's really that point after you get preliminary land use approval prior to getting the ability to apply for building permits. So typically you get preliminary land use approval and you get a host of conditions. So you'll have to do grading and get CWS permits and get a facility permits and meet with TVF&R and THPRD. There's a host of things you have to do prior to getting building permits. And so Jennifer's been hired to help coordinate, facilitate that process. Her job is kind of evolving. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to utilize that resource. But just know that from here on out, if you think you're getting stuck after preliminary land use approval, you're trying to get that point where you can apply for building permits, and you're dealing with different parts of either the county or other agencies where the left hand and the right hand might not be communicating as well as they could. Jennifer is going to be a good resource to help get through that process. In terms of activity levels, it's kind of an interesting time. Things are slowing down in terms of permit activity and revenue that we're pulling in, but not drastically. And in some indicators, things are more active. So we're actually having more pre-application conferences. There's more people coming into the counter. We're actually getting more phone calls. So it's kind of like the people were scrambling a few years ago to get things in. It seemed like there was a good sense that the economy had recovered, and as long as you could get through the process. And now people are being more, asking a lot more questions before they go forward with projects. So we're busy, but we're not necessarily taking in quite as many applications. Let me talk about the agenda a little bit. Derek's going to give a quick overview of where we're at in project docs. We're going to talk a little bit about rural development. I don't think we've talked about rural development on one of these forums before. So Jenny Bond, Kofi, and Scott are going to talk about generally what needs to happen in the rural area to develop. And I think this is a good area to kind of emphasize that partnership. Rural area has a lot of interesting specific rules that if you're new to it are pretty confusing. So I think it's an area where we're really dedicated to make sure you understand what's going on and help you get through that. Teresa's going to talk about the long-range planning work program. Tom's going to talk about some significant natural resource work we're doing and sort of the status of that work, and then I'll wrap up the meeting.